Oh, we get started. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, we'd like to call to order the June 6th meeting of the Shreveport Metropolitan Planning Commission of Caddo Parish. Would ask that you would join us today in an invocation and in our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Father, in times like these, we say thank you. We thank you for health and strength and wisdom and knowledge. We thank you for the opportunity to be called servants. And as we deliberate today these requests from these our citizens, we pray for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding as we gather here today. For it is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you and welcome to the regularly scheduled public meeting of the Shreveport Caddo Parish Metropolitan Planning Commission. For our public hearing agenda items, if you wish to make public comments on an application, we have Mpc comment slips at the speaker's stand next to the podium. And for future notification purposes, it is very important that you fill out a slip and drop it in the box when you come forward to speak. Please state your full name, mailing address, and zip code before addressing the board. We will call each case on the agenda in order and hear first from the applicant and then those speaking in favor. 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. We will then hear from those wishing to speak against a particular application. Again, 10 minutes are allotted for the principal spokesperson and 3 minutes for each additional speaker. One representative of the application can then speak in rebuttal if so desired. After hearing comments on both sides of the case, the board will then immediately deliberate and vote on the case before moving on to the next case on our agenda. Please note that when the board is deliberating, members of the public are not permitted to comment. Any member of the public may request a copy of the board's decision on a particular case by contacting our office at 673-6480 after 1:00 p.m. on tomorrow, or by accessing our website at shreveportcaddompc.com. For consent agenda items and other agenda items not requiring a public hearing, public comments can be made upon request by filling out an Mpc comment slip. If comments are requested for a specific agenda item, the chair will offer an opportunity for those comments prior to the commission taking action on the agenda items. All of the Mpc board decisions are subject to appeal to either the city council or the parish commission, depending on the location of the property in question. Please note that it is your responsibility to contact the appropriate governing body about their procedures as related to the matter with which you are concerned. Copies of this document and the phone numbers to contact the governing bodies are available on the table next to the podium and in the entryway to this room. As a courtesy, ladies and gentlemen, please remember to turn off all cell phones while the Mpc board is in session. The commission values your testimony and appreciates your compliance with these guidelines. Next on our agenda is our approval of our minutes for our May 2nd, 2018 meetings. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve. Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrews, a second by Mrs. Smith to approve the minutes for the May 2nd meeting. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. That passes. Next, we have public hearings. We have no consent agenda items, so we'll move on to our public hearings. We have one public hearing, case number P-12-18 is a zoning request. Applicant is Moore and Associates. Mr. Craig, welcome.
Andy Craig, Moore and Associates, 1324 North Hearn, 2301 247-1107. I guess my goal was to have every case on the agenda.
You got it.
That today. The case before you today is one y'all have seen before, a couple of times before. The tract that y'all rezoned recently to R15 there on the map is where we're going to do have gotten approval to do 12 lots. We have not started construction yet, and the developer had a great idea to take the adjacent 5 trailers to the north of that R15 tract there and jump start his project with with 4 single-family homes there. We can get going on those real quick because there's not much infrastructure to be done there. We don't have the construction time that we're going to have with the other 12. So we got to looking into it, and I talked to Stephen about it and figured out, well, those are in the RMHP zone, so we've got to get it rezoned. So we're before you today to rezone just a small piece to get the 4 lots in there to be able to help jumpstart his project. Like I said, it's going to replace 5 mobile homes. We're going to replace it with 4 stick-built single-family homes. So we think it is something that is a pretty good idea. I'll be willing to answer any questions.
Anybody, any questions? Thank you, Mr. Craig. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? All right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Andrews, a second by Mrs. Smith to approve case number P-12-18. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. All right, thank you so much. That is the end of our public hearings. Next on our agenda is old business. There's a report from our May 17th town hall meeting. Mr. Sweeney?
Sure. As you know, we had a meeting on April the 11th, and then we had a follow-up meeting on May the 17th, the town hall meeting. In the town hall meeting on May the 17th was our response to the comments and concerns from the development and design professionals that attended the first meeting, in which we came up with a series of what we call proposed amendments to the UDC. We think will effectively address the majority of their concerns and issues. We have an outline of that report. The whole report actually you can find on our website at ShreveportCaddoMPC.com. If you look at reports, you'll see the area where it talks about we have an executive summary of the main issues that were brought up, and then a layout of the areas or the portions of the UDC that need to be or being recommended for changes. What we want to do is to let you kind of give you a pre-warning that we're going to kind of break this up into 2 portions. We're going to bring you about 17 or 18 amendments at your July 11th meeting. And we will then bring you the other half of that group of amendments. Probably another 17 or 18 amendments for the August 1st MPC meeting, so that we can push those on to the City Council and Caddo Parish Commission for consideration and approval. We will not be, as we have traditionally done in the past, we're not going to do the 30-day layover like we've done to give you time to review it. We're going to try to get it to you 2 weeks in advance of the actual meeting to give you that much time to review it. We're going to try to expedite the approval of these amendments, and we feel like that way we can accomplish our goal or deadline of trying to have them before the City Council by September of this year, so that they can go into effect and we can begin to put those into place. So we're looking around 34, 36 amendments, but to do it in 2 portions makes a lot of sense because it will be more digestible and easier to discuss and to explain if we do it that way. So we will be proceeding with that, and we'll be looking forward to the July 11th meeting being a very productive meeting for addressing those issues. The next item on your agenda there under old business has to do with the wireless communications. We were going to distribute to you a copy. If you remember, y'all approved an amendment to the UDC on wireless communications back in February of this year. And then it took a while for the city's portion. There was another set of city codes and ordinances that had to be updated as well. And that was a long process in which they worked with the industry, the telecommunications industry stakeholders. Got a lot of that approved and changed and was adopted back a few months ago. The UDC part needs to be now updated to reflect some of those things. So we're going through the process of getting industry comments for the UDC amendments that will complement what the city has done on wireless communications. Part of the holdup right now is that there are a series of franchise agreements that are being worked out with the industry representatives, and there is a preference on the part of the city attorney's office to delay our action on the UDC part until those parts are in place. And so you probably will not see the final UDC amendments dealing with wireless communications until at the earliest will be July the 11th, and more than likely will be your August meeting, along with the other amendments that you're going to be seeing on the UDC as well.
All right, is that it?
That's on the old business.
All right, new business.
Yeah, new business. Just want to bring it to your attention that we did have the joint city council parish commission meeting back on last Friday, June the 1st, at the Skybox. We had a good turnout for that. What was important was the opportunity for both bodies to come together and to begin the dialogue about how you fund the UDC, the MPC going forward. We wanted to do this early on. I've been pushing a lot of buttons and working with a lot of elected officials to make this happen, because we felt like it is prudent to have this conversation, to have some level of an understanding of what funding we can expect before we get deep into the budgeting process. Bear in mind, we start budgeting this month of June. We will have the budget for 2019 presented to you at your August 1st meeting. So what was a statement that was made at our meeting on Friday was that the intent was to come to some understanding between the two bodies within the next 30 to 45 days. So our hope is that that will be accomplished. There are several more things that have to be done, more discussions that have to occur, and more subsequent meetings. But as the old saying goes, we got the ball rolling, and we feel like that if we can have good information before we come to August 1st, when you have to adopt your budget and send it on to City Council for their consideration, that we will have most of the primary parts in place in terms of revenue and funding for the agency. So that was a pivotal meeting, and one that we'll see more information on that as we go along. I will keep you posted on that.
Right. Other matters to be reviewed by the commission. Any commissioners, any comments or concerns from any of board members?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Young?
For the record, I had sent you a formal request to have added to the agenda, not necessarily a full-fledged discussion, although any boards want to bring it up, they may be more than welcome to go into discussion on it. It's always been my philosophy that Mr. Sweeney's contract ought to be terminated in the sense that he's become an at-will employee, like the rest of the employees that are at that level of management in the city of Shreveport and Caddo Parish. We had this discussion 2 months ago in the executive committee. I don't want to go into details on that, but it was discussed. And so, given that his contract is due up July 1, this would be the only time to do that if it's going to be brought up. So I am going to offer into the record an official motion to terminate the contract or not renew the contract, and Mr. Sweeney would become an at-will employee, to align with the rest of the parish in the city. And that is my motion.
I think you would have to, Mr. Young, I don't know if I'm off on this, but I would assume that would have to be an item that you'd have to add to the agenda for us to act on.
Mr. Chair, I specifically emailed you and asked you.
Did I not say that specifically?
Yes, and I specifically requested to be actually listed on the agenda. It's not even listed.
Yes, sir. But you do remember what I said specifically?
I did. I responded back to your request and specifically stated, please add it to the agenda.
And I said,
if you need guidance, I think I said, I referred you to go to the attorney, Rick John, to get guidance on how to exactly word it.
No, I can tell you what we said specifically. What I said to you about this agenda item, well, you said to me, just for the record, that you weren't, I said I thought it was best talked about in executive session first, and then we can put it on there. You said you didn't want that. I said I certainly don't mind entertaining the conversation, But the fact, I think since you don't want to have an executive session, you should simply offer it for addition to the agenda on the day of the meeting.
I second the motion.
Out of-
We need to get the attorney down here, go ahead and call him.
You can't, it's out of order. It's got to be on the agenda before we deal with it.
You're out of order for not adding things.
That's good. I didn't identify you to
You
speak,
don't have to
sir.
identify me. I'm
Yes,
just
I
telling
do.
you,
You-
you're the one that's out of order.
You're out of order.
Okay.
You're out of order. So here's, let me just so for the record, for the commission in general and for the record, I think we operate by bylaws. And I believe that if we operate by bylaws, then there are two ways to get something on the agenda, I think. One way to get something on the agenda is the initial way you attempt it. The second way to get on the agenda is the way I suggested to you. Maybe you're outside the bounds and say those are two ways. I'm not duty bound, okay, to respond collegially to persons who consistently operate outside of the bylaws. Just not going to do it. So you have the mechanism of saying, well, I can bring it to the body, and I'll make a motion to add it to the agenda, and we see whether we add it to the agenda. I don't know if I'm outside the bounds of what is within my purview to do that. I'm not saying it may be something that you would prefer. I'm just saying I'm trying to operate within the scope of what my purview is.
What is at will employee? And we need to, if whatever we was gonna do, shouldn't it be done in executive committee?
Well, I don't think the action can be done in executive committee. I think the action should be appropriately done by having an agenda item, then asking us to act on the agenda item. Mr. Young reached out to me, which he does when he wants me to put something on the agenda, but not when he does other things that fall within the scope of the bylaws. So as a result, I felt like I'm not duty bound to act in reciprocity each time when we don't do it consistently. So as a result, I felt as if it's something that he should give leadership to in a setting like this. And that's what I said to him. Well, it wasn't a secret. I said that to him specifically, what I'm saying to him right now in public.
My thing was you asked about going to executive committee, and that's what we did 2 months ago. So I felt like we'd already gone that route, and now we've done it in executive committee, we had the conversation, so the next level would be to bring it to the board to a vote. That's why I requested to be listed as an item on the agenda, and I specifically said that I would be bringing a motion before. So given that, it was the assumption that it would be added to the agenda as an agenda item and listed as an agenda item. So what you're saying is that the bylaws don't give me that right?
No, I'm saying that you do have a way to do it, which is to make a motion to have it added to the agenda, and we act on things on the agenda. We would be outside of our legal scope to be able to act on something that's not even on the agenda. It was never posted, and it became something that was an action that we would have done.
But it wasn't posted because my request to you to have it put on the agenda was not
Honored.
honored.
Right.
Why?
As I said, I do not feel, for the record, duty bound to respond in that way when the bylaws and the spirit of the bylaws, no, forget it, the letter of the bylaws are consistently violated. I don't feel the need to reciprocally come back and do what I'm being asked to do by persons who operate outside the scope of the bylaws consistently. So I don't deprive you of a way to get it on the agenda. I said no about myself adding it to the agenda, but I made sure there was a way that you could still get it added to the agenda.
Would the
And I said that.
attorney-
So what you're saying is the only way to
No.
get it on the bylaws is by bringing it up, and because it's all brought up today by the bylaws specifically state the only way it can be added to the bylaws is a unanimous vote to add it to the agenda today as an action item. There
Right.
has to be a unanimous vote.
I agree.
So then all board members have no other way to add anything to the agenda other than the chair. That's what you're telling me.
No.
There is no other process built within the bylaws
You
that
just
adds.
named two.
Huh?
You just named two. The chairman
Uh-huh.
or adding it to the agenda on the day of the meeting. There's two ways to get anything on the agenda.
I can
So it
read.
becomes basically a dictatorship.
No, I mean, when you mean, or do you mean operating outside the bylaws and choosing to do what you
No,
want
no,
to
no,
do?
no, no.
when we're
I'm
not
saying
having
the
a meeting?
bylaws is
That's a
creating
dictatorship, right?
No, I'm saying
Is
the
that what you mean
bylaws,
by dictatorship?
the way our bylaws are written is creating a dictatorship. Not you are, the bylaws
Oh, I didn't
themselves
write,
are.
yeah, I didn't write, we approved
Because
it.
the bylaws are saying the only two ways I can ever get anything on is by unanimous vote of this board the day of the meeting,
Right,
or the fact that you add it to the meeting agenda and that's it,
That's correct.
then we have some serious problems with our
think
bylaws
we
that
amended
do not address the 9 individual members and their right to express their viewpoints or bring items of interest up. And I'm wondering if that doesn't actually violate state law.
The Attorney General could probably give you a decision on that.
If I am denied my right to vote today, that will happen. I guarantee you
I'm
that will
I'm
happen.
suggesting you do it. I'm suggesting to you that if you think it's outside the bounds, that you should do it. Mr. Sweeney?
I just wanted to read the bylaws here just for clarification. You're absolutely correct. It does require a unanimous vote of this body to add something to an agenda, which is what the city council and the parish commission do. But also written here that you might, just for clarification, it says, "The chair shall also honor any request by a member for an item to be placed on the next regular meeting agenda for discussion, provided such request is made not less than 4 weeks prior to the next regular meeting, and provided that such a request is submitted to the chair in a written format."
4 weeks.
4 weeks, sir.
Then I will withdraw that motion, and just for the record, I will make a motion to add it as an action, as an agenda item today, if I don't have recourse any other way.
I second that motion.
Got a motion and second to add to the agenda the subject that was brought up as it relates to the contract by Mr. Young. Any questions?
I have one. I
Yes.
don't know exactly where we stand procedure at this point. I put myself in the queue. I wanted to address Ms. Bessie's question. You asked Ms. Bessie whether or not, if I may.
Oh, is it relevant to the question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. You were asking Ms. Bessie what at-will means.
Yes.
Okay, in Louisiana, we have what's typically called at-will employment. That means unless you have a specific contract, you can be terminated from employment for any reason or for no reason at all. You can be terminated because they don't like, I could be terminated because my employer doesn't like my time, or they don't like the way I come to work in the morning. If I don't have a contract, you can be terminated for any reason that is not outside the Constitution. You can't be terminated for age, sex, sexual preference, any handicap or anything of that nature. But for any other circumstance under which a person has no contract, they can be terminated. So as it currently stands, Mr. Sweeney has a contract. I presume that the contract will have certain provisions that specifically address the ways in which he may be terminated and any recourse that he may have for being terminated. As I appreciate it, and I wanted to get to this because I want to get some personal clarification. As I appreciated, Mr. Young's motion and angle is to do away with the contract. I'm not quite sure whether or not there's a move at this point to terminate him. So does that kind of respond to your question?
Yes.
It seems like it'd be a two-step inquiry. A, getting rid of the contract. B, getting rid of Mark. And I'm not quite sure where that falls on this spectrum.
Do you want me to comment?
Absolutely.
My motion is strictly the contract.
His
That's what
contract.
my motion is limited to.
And let him work under at will.
It's like all the other, like the new airport guy they brought in from San Francisco, and all the other department heads in both the parish and city, they're all at will. Even Brian Crawford's at will. So that works for the CAO for the mayor. That's what it basically will put him in the
Parish
same.
at will.
Parish is at will. Everybody's at will.
So you're making a motion for him to work at will like all of the rest of them,
Yes, ma'am.
but not do away.
My motion is not to terminate his employment.
Would he like to speak on what he's talking about?
I don't.
He can't?
No, I don't think that would be appropriate, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. So-
Let's just get on the personnel discussion without having
Well,
executive.
I think it's, if we keep it in the scope that I think Mr. Young is talking about, it's simply adding an item to the agenda to then have a discussion about a contract. What it appears that is happening is we're having discussions about the contract, and it's not yet on the agenda. I assume what he simply wanted to do is add today to this agenda the discussion of the continuation or the termination of a contract for the executive director.
All benefits, everything. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, she asked me a
That's right.
question.
I was asking him, you keep the same pay, same, everything.
I don't think none of that would change, Mr.
Ain't
Chair.
nothing
changed.
changes to my knowledge.
To your knowledge.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
He answered, nothing changed. Okay.
If nothing else, call for
So,
vote.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions?
I had
Oh.
a comment.
On this subject?
Yeah, on this stuff,
Go ahead.
adding it to the agenda. But I completely disagree with you on the record
It's
for,
okay.
because you say that the reason why you wouldn't add something to the agenda is because someone else didn't follow the protocols of the, and I just think that this is, it's egregious that of your opinion, you can, I mean, this is, the public's agenda. This is the citizens of our community's agenda, not your agenda, okay? So if you think this is about the 4th or 5th time that we have documentation that we've asked for things to be put on the agenda that you failed to put them on the agenda.
I didn't fail to put it on the agenda. I told him that I
Well, no,
would
you
not.
can,
Did I not communicate
right
with you
now. I've got
directly?
the floor right now.
All right.
But I
So,
think
this-
that
listen,
your
when you address
shell
the chair,
games.
when you address the
but-
chair as the chair, and it's not about motive, or addressing motive. If you address the chair, do so as is appropriate by Robert's Rule of Order,
Okay.
not talking about individuals.
Okay, well, I believe,
You can't question my motive.
that, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna get, down in the weeds like you did last meeting or meeting before that and call everybody names. I'm just saying that you are completely out of line by not adding items to the agenda that other board members have every right to put on the agenda. And, I think someone needs to call you on it and make you explain for that.
I think I
So I
did.
think you're just, it's being, like he said, a dictator or bully or whatever you want to call it. But, if you don't agree with something, it's blocked from being put on the agenda, and we've seen that numerous times. So, I just think it's really unprofessional.
Mr. Remedies,
and
how does that
it's
have
not-
anything to do with the question that's on the floor?
Because you've blocked Mr.
That's,
Young's item.
Mr. Young's
for
item
being
is,
on the
Mr.
agenda.
Young's item is on the floor right now. So
Okay.
how, you're out of order
No, I'm
because that's
out of-
not,
You're the one that's out of order, or it would be on the agenda. That's the problem here.
you finished?
That you are
Oh,
are
are you
a
finished?
serious problem and a serious liability by not adding these to the
Are you,
agenda.
okay, are you finished?
I am now.
All right. So any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no. To add this to the agenda.
Add it to the agenda.
And that is 4-3 against. Any other matters to, board members, comments?
I have one. I'd like to make a motion, a vote of no confidence for the chair. Could I get a second on that?
Second.
No confidence, what he's done.
Vote of no confidence means you have no more confidence in your chair's ability to do his job. If he's not going to honor a request from his own board members. whether it's
Any
in
other
the
questions?
problem-
I got a motion and a second. All, I don't know if I think that may be it.
Discussion.
Do we need to have this item added to the agenda to vote on it? I don't know.
Needs that added.
Yes, you'd have to add it to the agenda, so.
So this, we would need a motion to add it to the agenda. That would be out of order.
Okay. Well, I have a motion to add to the agenda a vote of no confidence for Theron Jackson as chairman.
I got a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion, any questions on that? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no, adding it to the agenda.
There's no
In the middle, the red.
All right, that fails. Any other board member comments?
Yes, sir, I'd like to add for next meeting, be
We
placed on the agenda
We can't do that today.
for an action item or a
Yeah.
vote
We
and
can't
discussion
add
of
to
no
that.
confidence of the chairman.
voted for.
Yeah, but
Any other comments to come before the board?
I'm sorry, Mr.
Sir,
Chair.
is that request gonna be denied?
And I was explaining.
No, that's okay. Any other comments to come before the
I'll
board?
explain it to her in just a second.
Is that
Hearing
request
none.
going to be denied? Did you say hearing none? I believe I had a question
No,
and a
you
comment.
asked- you made a motion, and there's no second for that motion, but because that's not the way you put it on the agenda.
I'm asking you in a public forum, can it be put on there so we don't have the shell games where we had it left off of the agenda
Send
again?
me an email.
What's that?
Send me-
You were
the
saying,
bylaw says Send me an email. All right, I need a motion for adjournment. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any questions?
Hold on. That was, on the last issue, on the vote of no confidence that added, Ms. Bessie's vote is not recorded.
You gotta do it again.
I voted, to remove him as chairman.
no, a vote of no confidence.
To
No
add the
confidence,
vote
she
of no
voted
To
confidence.
add that to the agenda.
I
She
voted
voted
no.
She voted no.
For the record.
For the record, she voted no. So I have a motion on the second on the floor for adjournment. Any questions? If not, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned.